bin Muhsin bin Hussein bin Umar bin Abdurrahman bin Aqil al-Attas bin Salim bin Abdullah bin Abdurrahman bin Abdullah bin Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Saqaf bin Shaykh Muhammad Mawla al-Dawila bin Ali Mawla al-Daraf bin Alawi al-Ghayub الفقيه المقدم محمد بن علي بن محمد صاحب مربات أن علي خالي قسم بن علوي بن محمد صاحب السومة بن علوي من عبيد الله بن الإمام المهاجر إلى الله أحمد بن عيسى بن محمد النقي بن علي الأريدي بن جعفر الصادق بن محمد الباقر بن علي زين الآبدين بن حسين السب بن علي بن Abi Talib and Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of our Master Muhammad, the seal of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His mother was the pious Sayyida Salma bin Shaykh bin Abdullah al-Attas. His life. Habib Ahmad was born in Urayda in 1257, 1841. He went blind while still an infant, but Allah opened his inner sight, and at a young age he would inform people of the unseen. His upbringing was supervised by his paternal grandfather Habib Abdullah, who began teaching him the Quran at the age of 5. The knower of Allah, Habib Salih bin Abdullah al-Attas, oversaw his spiritual development. One Friday morning, Habib Ahmad, who was 5 or 6 years old, was playing in the street. Habib Salih passed by and told him to put on his best clothes and go to pray the Friday prayer. Then he recited to him, "If someone venerates the sacred things of Allah, this is truly a sign of piety in the heart." This was the first verse of the Quran that Habib Ahmad received from Habib Salih, and he immediately went home, bathed, rested, and went to the Friday prayer. Habib Salih planted in the young boy's heart an intense longing for Allah and a desire to travel the path to him. His attachment to Habib Salih was immense, and whenever he heard that he was coming to Hurayda from his hometown, Habib Ahmad would go far out of Hurayda to meet him, and would then spend all his time in his company. Habib Ahmad complained of being distracted by satanic whisperings, waswasa, in his early days, until one day he stood next to Habib Salih while he said Allahu Akbar gently. Habib Salih's word went straight to Habib Ahmad's heart and removed all traces of these whisperings. Later he traveled to study with Habib Salih in Amd, and it was there that he received his opening. His early days was characterized by immense spiritual striving. He said that he would turn the day into the night and the night into the day, and at times he would pray the Fajr or Dhuhr prayer with the wudu that he had made for the Isha prayer the night before. So abstemious was he that Habib Salih would bring him dates and sit with him to make sure he ate them. Habib Ahmad's second main sheikh was Habib Abu Bakr bin Abdullah al-Attas, who placed his gaze upon Habib Ahmad from an early age. Habib Abu Bakr would test him by keeping him waiting outside his house for hours before finally allowing him to enter. Habib Ahmad once asked for a written ijaza from Habib Abu Bakr. Habib Abu Bakr asked him if he would prefer for him to write the ijaza on paper or in his heart. Habib Ahmad, of course, chose the latter. Habib Abu Bakr once wrote to Habib Ahmad, "Persevere until the leaves and the thorns fall away, and what is left is the fruit." Habib Abu Bakr later hailed Habib Ahmad as the heir of his ancestor Habib Umar bin Abdurragman al-Attas. In 1274, while still in his youth, Habib Ahmad went to perform Hajj and visit the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then settled in Makkah in 1275 to seek knowledge. Shaykh al-Islam Sayyid Ahmad bin Zaini Dahlan took him under his wing and oversaw his studies. Under his tutelage, he finished his memorization of the Quran, mastered its variant readings, and deepened his knowledge of the Islamic sciences. He ordered him to leave all his awrad and focus on his studies. Habib Ahmad obeyed, leaving with a great reluctance all of his awrad, including the ratib of Habib Umar bin Abdurrahman. Such was Habib Umar's concern for Habib Ahmad, however, that he came to him repeatedly and ordered him to read the ratib until he did so. Sayyid Ahmad greatly honored Habib Ahmad and foresaw the rank that he would reach. He wanted him to succeed in teaching and leading the prayer in the Masjid al-Haram, but Habib Ahmad refused, following in the footsteps of his predecessors who preferred not to be known by all. Habib Ahmad also studied in the hands of other scholars of the two sanctuaries, among them Habib Muhammad bin Hussein al-Habashi and Habib Fadl bin Alawi Mawla al-Dawila.
Try to listen and pay attention as much as you can. If you had copies of the books, it would have been easier for you to follow. Continue.
He returned to Hurayda in 1281 and spent the rest of his life in the way of his predecessors, calling people to Allah, spreading knowledge and rectifying society. Hurayda and the surrounding valleys were characterized by ignorance, illiteracy, tribal violence, and un-Islamic customs. Habib Ahmad paid for teachers to come to the town to teach the ordinary people their religious obligations and teach them to read, write, and recite the Quran. He paid for Mu'allima Salihah, a female scholar from Tarim, who had studied at the hands of the great caller to Allah, Habib Ahmad bin Umar bin Sumayt, to come to Hurayda to teach the woman. He provided her with a house and a salary and would send her to other towns to teach. He oversaw the education of children and would at times invite them to his house and ask them about their progress. He would give the children sweets and pens and paper and give money to the teachers. His mastery of jurisprudence allowed him to find opinions that allowed the common people to practice their religion with ease. He opposed excessive rigidity in following the Shafi'i school, especially if the rigidity made life difficult for the common people and was not in accordance with the spirit of the book and the Sunnah. People in outlying areas of Hadramaut would often leave the prayer due to lack of water with which to purify themselves. Habib Ahmad, however, taught them to purify themselves with water that had previously been used for purification. Although this was impermissible according to most Shafi'i scholars, Habib Ahmad used this opinion to save people from leaving the prayer entirely. He always encouraged his students to refer to the books of the early scholars, since he found that the later books had less blessings in them and less reference was made to the evidence of the Quran and the Sunnah. He emphasized that when it came to acting upon the rulings of the sacred law, he would look at his predecessors among the Ba'alawi Imams had acted upon them and follow their example. He said, I am not jealous of any angel or any prophet, but I am envious of the one who follows our predecessors. Robbery and fighting had been common in Hurayda until Habib Ahmad designated the heart of the city a safe haven, Houta, and managed to get all the tribes in Hadramaut to agree to this. He rid the town of some un-Islamic practices, particularly those associated with weddings. He not only served the living but also establishing a program of recitation of the Quran for the dead, similar to the program in place in Tarim and other towns in Hadramaut. He ensured that the town's religious endowments, awqaf, were properly preserved and recorded. He expended his wealth and his time and used the respect in which he was held to stall tribal feuds in the region, and was regarded as the main negotiator in Hadramaut. Whenever he heard that trouble had broken out between tribes or between the rulers, he would rush to the area to find a solution. At times, he would spend months going between one tribe and another in attempts to come to an agreement. He would always spend his wealth and time repairing flood channels and dams in a region prone to flash floods. Although much of his time was spent in Hurayda and the surrounding region, he would make regular trips to other cities in Hadramaut to visit the scholars and blessed places. He continued his pursuit of knowledge at the hands of the great Imams of the time, Habib Ahmad bin Muhammad al-Mihdar, Habib Aidarus bin Umar al-Habashi, Habib Muhsin bin Alawi al-Saqaf, and Habib Abdurragman bin Ali al-Saqaf. He once visited the Quran school in Tarim established by Imam al-Aidarus and insisted on sitting in front of the teacher and reciting Surah Al-Fatiha to him so that he would be counted among one of the students who had studied there. He said that he sought spiritual assistance from the mere earth of Tarim. While in Tarim, he would divide his praise among the different mosques so as to gain blessings from all of them. He said that he could find evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah even for the customs of Tarim. He assembled a great library which contained many rare manuscripts and became famous in Hadramaut. His veneration for sacred knowledge was such that no effort or expense was too much for Habib Ahmad in pursuit of books. He was overjoyed when a copy of the recently published Tafsir al-Imam al-Tabari reached him in Hurayda. His students started reading it to him immediately, and in the space of little over a year they read through the 10 large volumes.
Yes, a long book. And if you continue reading, it's going to take up over those dars. هو زاد حبيب أحمد بن حسن al-Turath before. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Turath passed away just over 100 years ago. About that. him losing the sight of his physical eyes, that only enhance the sight of his basira, his inner sight. And the difference between outer sight of the physical eye and the inner sight of the heart is that the outer sight of the eyes only allows you to see that which is apparent in front of you, whereas the basira, the inner sight of the heart, allows you to see that which is apparent and beyond that which is apparent. Like we all heard of Imam al-Haddad rahimahullah tabaraka wa ta'ala illustrating what inner sight means and how it allows you to even see that which is physical is somebody came to the Ummah of Imam Haddad on an occasion, and this person questioned, how is it possible that Imam Haddad, who is a blind scholar, is able to write so many books? How does somebody who is blind is able to write? And he had this issue with the fact that Imam Haddad was blind. So Imam Haddad welcomed into his home, and he came in and he sat down, and what then happened was after sitting down, they had a discussion, and from the discussion eventually he brought in some refreshments, and from the refreshments was some coffee. And when they brought in the coffee, Imam Haddad began drinking, and then the guest who had an issue with Imam Haddad, he was about to drink. And before he drank from his coffee, Imam Haddad told him, watch out, a fly just fell in your coffee. And when he looked in his cup, he saw that there was a fly. And then he realized that the sight that Imam Haddad has is better than my sight. And that's the nature of inner sight. So he had lost his eyesight at a young age, but was replaced with inner sight, which is better than outer sight. Now, so from a young age he was able to see the unseen. What does it mean when you can see the unseen? With inner sight you can see the unseen. You can see the pure souls of Anbiya and Salihin, and you can see angels, Malaika, that are roaming on this earth and that are part of this gathering as we sit here. And many of the Salihin till this current era are able to observe that and see that. Now, many of our Shaykh, when visiting the graves of the Salihin, observe and witness, and sometimes even engage in conversation with the Salihin. Like one of our teachers, and Rajul Salih Alim, Maulana, once when he visited the grave of Shaykh Yusuf rahimahullah ta'ala, and he told me this with his own mouth, that he met Shaykh Yusuf rahimahullah ta'ala, the founder of Islam in the Cape. And he told me very casually that when we visited Shaykh Yusuf's maqam in Kramat, I met him there. And he said that, however, I'm not someone, these mukashafat, that which Allah allows us to see, I don't write them down. They happen, I don't write them down. But what I do recall was, after meeting Shaykh Yusuf at his grave in Makassar, meaning the soul of Shaykh Yusuf, what I do recall was that Shaykh Yusuf encouraged me to spread tasawwuf in this community. So that's the basira, that's the inner sight. فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. And that's the reality. And Allah knows best why I'm mentioning this morning, but some of our young brothers need to appreciate that a person that focuses on the heart, like all these ulama and scholars whose biographies we are reading, when they focused on their hifz, when they focused on the Quran, when they made the Quran their night and day, when they woke up in the early hours of morning and constantly exerted themselves in drawing closer and closer to Allah and protecting their hearts from that which is displeasing to Allah, what happens? The hearts became pure. And when the heart becomes pure, veils are lifted or removed. And when veils are lifted and removed from the heart develops innocence. No. So he was a young boy when he developed insight, and one of his most important teachers was the Arif Billah, the know of Allah, Habib Salih bin Abdullah al-Attas. He lived in a place called Hurayda. Said Luqman Attas there at the back, their family, the Attas family, Habib Umar bin Abdurragman al-Attas, the Attas family, their hub is not Tarim. They never settled in Tarim. The Attas family never settled in Tarim. They lived in Hurayda. And Hurayda is about maybe an hour's drive from Tarim. From Tarim to Sayyun is about 20-30 minutes. And then from Sayyun to Hurayda, maybe another 50 minutes or so. So probably 1 hour to 1 hour 30 minutes. And in the graveyard in Hurayda, Habib Umar bin Abdurrahman al-Attas is buried. In the graveyard in Hurayda, you'll find Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas, whose biography we're reading now, he's buried over there. And you find there Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas, who's another Shaykh of Habib Ahmad bin Hassan. Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas, we came across his name before. He was also the Shaykh of another Habib whose biography we read previously. So I don't expect the Hifz boys to know the answer to this question. But I do expect some of the seniors here who are supposed to be reading the biographies of our Mashaykh, the Sad al-Ba'ala. Who was Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas? Nobody knows, subhanAllah. Habib Ali al-Habshi, he mentions Habib Bakr in his poem. ومن قطب الملا أخذت الكاس ومن قطب الملا أخذت الكاس. That was Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas. Now, so Habib Abu Bakr is also the Shaykh of Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas, and he's also buried in the Maqbara there in Hurayda. But his main Shaykh when he grew up was Habib Salih al-Attas. And his journey started with Habib Salih in one meeting. And therefore you must be eager to meet with the Salihin. Because meeting with the Salihin, sometimes one meeting with them can change your life forever. One meeting with the Salihin can change your life forever. He was one Friday morning, Habib Ahmad bin Hassan was a youngster of 5 or 6 years old. When what happened? He was playing outside. And while he was playing outside on a Friday morning, Habib Salih passed by him. And Habib Salih, wearing his clothing for Jummah, his white clothing, his turban, prepared to go to the masjid. Habib Salih passed by the young Habib Ahmad and recited to him a verse of the Quran that وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. So then we must understand the context. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan, it's a Friday morning, he's making his way to the masjid, he's wearing his white clothing, his turban, whatever, because the sha'air of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is translated here as the sacred things of Allah. I think you can come up with a more interesting translation for sha'air, right? But the sha'air are those things which speaks of Allah, calls you to Allah. If you look at the masjid, it's a shi'ar of Allah. If you look at the madrasa, it's a shi'ar of Allah. The Kaaba is a shi'ar of Allah, something that reminds you and connects you to Allah. Those are the sha'air. There's a translation that I used once, but the word is not coming to my mind, some fancy word. So these are the sha'air of Allah. So like the sha'air take the form of physical things, the masjid, the madrasa. The sha'air is also salihin, awliya. But sha'air is also occasions. From the sha'air of Islam is Yawm al-Jum'ah. and our attitude towards Yawm al-Jum'ah. What's my attitude towards Yawm al-Jum'ah? Like many of our mashayikh in Tarim, Hadramaut, they say that if your white top hasn't been washed and ironed by Asr on Thursday, then you're not really serious about Yawm al-Jum'ah. Right? How many of us on a Friday we're running around looking for a white top? Just before the waqt enter, just before I must go to mosque. Then I was upset with my mom and upset with everyone I was upset with because I don't have my white top. Why do I have no books on this laptop? Right? If I'm serious about this great sign of Allah, Yawm al-Jum'ah, I'm going to be ready already. Is the internet working? It's not working, my end. So, those are all from the Sha'ir of Allah. So he's playing on a Friday, and there's only 5 or 6 years old. Habib Salih al-Attas walks by, and Habib Salih recites to him the verse, وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ. Whoever shows veneration to the signs of Allah. Today is the day of Jum'ah. If you show reverence to this day of Jum'ah, فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. It's a sign of piety within your heart. And in that one meeting when Habib Salih recited that verse to him of the Quran, his whole life changed. He became detached from this dunya, and from the age of 6 he directed himself entirely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One meeting with Habib Salih, one verse of the Quran that was recited, no bayan, no lecture, no class, no long talks, no dawrah, no 40 days, no nothing. One meeting, one verse, his life changed, and his whole focus and being becomes focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the benefit of meeting with the Salihin. If you meet him with a good intention, with sincerity of heart, then what you are able to achieve has no limit. Ajib. This laptop was of no use to me. No, it's fine, it's fine. So, that was his first encounter with the Shaykh. So now, that's something to keep in mind. The next time I hear one of the pious is coming to our community, what do? Do I miss out on opportunities of the company when I know that the company can change me? Or do I take advantage of the company? Do I sit in their presence? Do I listen to their discourses? And wilaya, sainthood, is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you at any moment. And if Allah gives you sainthood, then you can have sins in your life and challenges that you're trying to overcome all your life. Within a split second, if Allah, through one of the Salihin, give you sainthood, whatever sin you have in your life, you will have absolutely no desire for that sin any longer. I think about it, we all have challenges. Imagine whatever challenge you have. Imagine in a split second it's just gone. That challenge don't exist. Then there's good things. How many of us would love to recite so much more Quran? To make so much longer tahajjud? To be so much more regular? To spend so much time in the masjid? To be so much better students? Right? What we're reading here in these biographies, how many of us long to live such lives? But the challenges are so many. Around every corner there's a challenge. I come home, there's a challenge. The television is a challenge. Your series is a challenge. Your games is a challenge. Right? Internet is a challenge. Everything is just calling you away from a pure, sublime life that you wish to live. But in a split second, through one of the Salihin, if Allah wishes to give you sainthood, you will turn away from all your desires, from all passion, from all fancies, from all whims, and you can direct yourself to Allah completely and entirely. And whatever desire you found in your games, you now find in the Quran. And whatever desire you found in watching television, you now find it in standing in salah. Right? And that's the benefit of meeting with the Salihin. A group of students was reading a poem once to Habib Zain bin Sumayt. Who knows Habib Zain bin Sumayt? The author of al-Manhaj al-Sawi. Who is he? You know, there's an Arab expression that reads, are you talking? You're not looking at me, you're facing that way. So, there's an Arab saying, it says that Man lam ya'arif ahla zamanihi fahuwa jahil. Whoever doesn't know the scholars of his time is a jahil, an ignorant person. And how many of us know the scholars of our time? Like Habib Zain bin Sumayt, how do you not know who Habib Zain is? Habib Zain is the Shafi Mufti in Medina al-Munawwara. The Mufti Shafi'iyya in Medina al-Munawwara is Habib Zain bin Sumayt. The author of many works. One of them is al-Manhaj al-Sawi, that Shaykh Muhammad Falanda is teaching every Sunday morning. Now, one of our mashayikh is Habib Umar Shaykh. He's also the Suwar of Habib Umar. Habib Umar and Habib Zain bin Sumayt are married to two sisters. Right? So Habib Zain, they were reading a poem in front of him. And then he stopped the poem in this, while they were reading, and the Habaib normally don't stop a poem in the middle. Somebody's reading, they let him read finish. But then he stopped. And then he said, because they were speaking about sainthood and receiving sainthood and a great opening from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said that Sha'n al-walaya shay' gharib. The matter of wilaya is it's a strange thing. Because he said there are people, they connect to a shaykh, and then they strive all their lives to receive sainthood, and they only receive it before they close their eyes. Before they leave this world, Allah grants them wilaya and then they pass away. And then there are those who strive for 40 years and Allah grants them sainthood. And there are those who strive for 10 years, Allah grants them sainthood. And there are those within 1 year, Allah gives them wilaya. And there are those within a few months, Allah gives them wilaya. And there are those within a few weeks, Allah gives them wilaya. And then he said, and there are many of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the minute they met their shaykh, they received wilaya. The minute they meet the shaykh, immediately they get the wilaya from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in all of it, you can see the door is the shaykh. The one who's connected to Allah and the one who's connected to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then Habib Zain then said, then there are those, they are born into this world and they already have wilaya. And then he looked at Sayyid Habib Umar and he said, Mithlak ya Umar. Mithlak ya Umar. They're born into this world with wilaya. So Habib, he was 5-6 years old and Allah opened up for him based on a verse that Habib Salih recited to him on his way to Jumu'ah. Allahu Akbar. So he was very much attached to the Shaykh of his. He said that while he was growing up and studying by Habib Salih, he used to have whispers from shaitan, waswasa. You know what is waswasa? Satanic whispers used to come to him. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Alright? And he said that one day he just stood alongside Habib Salih when he was making salah, and when he pronounced Allahu Akbar with the sincerity and the truthfulness and the intenseness of one Allahu Akbar of his shaykh, every whisper of shaitan that came to him disappeared. No. Then Habib Ahmad, he started devoting himself to his studies and ibadah and worship in such a way that he wasn't able to distinguish between day and night. He wasn't able to distinguish between day and night. And his Shaykh used to often bring him dates to ensure that he eats something, because he was so submersed in his studies and his ibadah that he even forgot about eating. So his Shaykh would bring him some dates to eat to ensure that he eats. And this is all the beginning, the start of his journey. And eventually he then met Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas, and he studied from the Habib Abu Bakr. And ultimately he then traveled on Hajj, where he ended up residing in Makkah al-Mukarramah. He stayed in Makkah. And one of the great ulama of Makkah was a scholar by the name of Sayyid Ahmad Zaini Dahlan. Have you heard the name Sayyid Ahmad Zaini Dahlan before? If you especially our kutub section, you need to start writing names down. I tell you, if somebody is an important person to know, write the name down. Go research, read his biography. Like all the names we came across thus far as people that you should have known. Sayyid Ahmad Zaini Dahlan, you must know. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attaj, you're supposed to know. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attaj eventually studies in Makkah, and he becomes one of the greatest, he becomes a Shafi Mufti in Makkah. And he becomes one of the greatest scholars in Makkah, in the history of Makkah. And his knowledge on Shafi fiqh was beyond compare. Right? Therefore he mentioned over here that eventually after many years in Makkah, when he returned to Hurayda, he used to often give people alternative views within the Shafi madhab to make things easy for them. He has a book called Tadhkirun Nas, which is like a masterpiece. Tadhkirun Nas, you'll read the most amazing stories therein. At first starts off with fiqh discussions and fatawis, and then just general kalam in tasawwuf, his encounters with arwah of salihin, his visions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, yani, it's this Tadhkir Nas, our Shaykh Mawlana Taha rahimahullah ta'ala, for many months on his pedestal next to the bed where he sleeps, he used to have a copy of Tadhkirun Nas. He told me that before he sleeps at night, he reads from Tadhkirun Nas. Abu Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. The Tadhkirun Nas is like an ajeeb title. This Habib Ahmad was a master. You can't imagine what a great scholar he was. Therefore he said that one of the views, for example, when water was scarce in Hurayda, so we know that ma musta'mal, can I use it for wudu? No. Once water has been used, it can still be used maybe to water my garden, but ma musta'mal cannot be used for wudu again. The only way I can use ma musta'mal again is if I do what? Hey? If I gather them all together and it goes beyond kullatayn, and there's no ra'iha, etc., then bismillah, you can use it again. It becomes pure once again. But if it doesn't reach that amount, you can't. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas, he found a view among the madhab of the ulama. Within the Shafi madhab, he says here he found a view that says as musta'mal water could be used. Imam Shafi rahimahullah ta'ala, what is those who answered now, so like, what's the dalil that you can't use musta'mal water? What was Imam Shafi's dalil that musta'mal water cannot be reused for wudu? Imam Shafi's dalil why musta'mal water could not be reused for wudu was, he said despite the fact that the Sahaba lived in a desert where there was a scarcity of water, it's not transmitted from any of the Sahaba or any of the Salaf that they ever tried saving the water that they used for ablution or ghusl. The fact that they allowed it to run away in a world where there's a scarcity of water is akbar dalil that it cannot be reused for ablution. No. Ala kulli hal. So he found a view within the madhab. They said they could reuse water, musta'mal water, for the simple reason he didn't want people not to perform salah. People weren't finding water and they were using that as an excuse. And you could argue that there was tayammum was an option, but he made takhrij of this wajh and taught it to the that that save your water with which you're performing wudu and make wudu with it again. And he spoke vehemently out against being rigid in the Shafi madhab. I think it's one of the reasons why I think Manata had a strong attachment to him. He spoke vehemently out against being rigid on the Shafi school. You know, when in terms of your personal practice, the general rule is that you must be harsh on yourself and you should be easy when it comes to others. Right? Harsh on yourself and easy when it comes to others. So if I want to practice upon the mu'tamad position within the Shafi'i madhab, in my personal capacity, tafaddal, as much as you want. Even that rigidity that you wish to have in practicing the mu'tamad in the Shafi'i madhab, I don't believe that to be the practice of most Shafi'is in any case. The ruh of the Shafi'i school is a ruh that is the spirit of taysir, and not a spirit of harshness and rigidity. A person that reads through the works of the fuqaha, Imam Nawawi and others, you see there's a ruh of taysir. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala often adopted views that were outside of the madhab. Imam Nawawi's views which is outside of the madhab, what do they refer to them as? The ikhtiyarat of Imam Nawawi. So that's a sign. Imam Subki had ikhtiyarat. Many of the Shafi'i ulama had ikhtiyarat, views outside the madhab that they adopted. And if you look at the expressions of Ibn Hajar al-Haytami he said that you can never mind adopting weaker views in your madhab. You can adopt views outside of your madhab, walau li mujarrad at-tashahi, even if you just want to do it because it's your desire of doing that which is easier. Walau li mujarrad at-tashahi, adopt whatever view you want, as long as you're practicing a view of a regarded school or madhab or alim. Right? So that was the ruh of Shaykh. Of course, in one's personal capacity, as best and as far as possible, you try to practice upon that which is mu'tamad, especially in your initial studying. If you don't adopt a strict stance in terms of what is mu'tamad, official, and what is not official, in your initial days of studying, then you're creating a problem for yourself. Why? Because you're not going to know what is mu'tamad and what is not mu'tamad. So during your student days, it's important to try to be rigid and try to be harsh on yourself, not on others, for your own development. But with time, that's not the spirit of our madhab. Unless you're a person of taqwa, unless you're one of the salihin and the awliya, and you're striving to do that, then it's a different story. Like, have you ever heard of the concept of fiqhul ahwat? Have you ever heard of fiqhul ahwat? What does ahwat mean? Most cautious. Most cautious. That's what the term I heard Shaykh Mukhtar Maghrabi referring to it as fiqhul ahwat. Now, but Shaykh Sha'rani in his Mizanul Amal, he doesn't call it, I don't think he calls it fiqhul ahwat, but he speaks about all the madhahib addressing various people on different levels of taqwa. He takes all the views of all the madhahib and says that the views of the ulama all applies to various people on different levels of taqwa. If your taqwa level is high, you apply the most strict view. And if your taqwa level is low, you apply a lesser strict view. And if you have no taqwa, like most of us, then you just take the easiest view. And examples of that can be observed in Sayyid Habib Umar. Sayyid Habib Umar, all his practices is the most safest view that is considered to be accurate according to the majority of ulama. Everything he does, he tries to do it in such a way that all the ulama, or the vast majority of them, considers the action to be valid. So by way of example, you'll find Sayyid Habib Umar when he travels, he would pray, let's say he's making jam salah in the waqt of dhuhr. So he'll make 2 rakats of dhuhr, and then he'll make 2 rakats of asr, as per the Shafi'i madhab. But then what he would do again, taking into consideration the view of those ulama that does not allow you to make jam when the waqt of Asr enters, he'll perform his Asr again for a second time. Because when you made taqdeem of Asr into the waqt of Dhuhr, that 2 raka'ats of Asr was not valid according to the Hanafi madhab. Right? So when Asr enters, he performs Asr for a second time, so that his Asr is not only valid according to the Shafi'is and the Malikis, wants his Salah to be valid according to their madhab as well. Right? So, following that understanding, if he was to bleed, and in the Shafi'i school the bleeding does not invalidate my wudu. If my taqwa level is high, I'm not going to adopt the Shafi'i madhab and say my wudu is valid. What am I going to do? I want to ensure that my wudu is valid according to the Hanafi school as well. So I rather perform wudu. Now, that is the highest level of fiqh that you can practice. Imam Sha'rani's Mizan al-Amal is like an amazing kitab. And then, but that's in relation to yourself. In relation to others, the job of the scholar is yasiru walatu. Whose words are those? Whose words? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yasiru walatu asiru. Make things easy for people and do not make things difficult. No. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So as a faqih, as a jurist, you try to make things as easy for people as possible. And in relation to yourself, make things as hard as you wish, according to your level of taqwa. Don't do things hard in front of people and behind closed doors and you practice on all the rukhas. In front of people, you're shadeed, behind closed doors, you want to practice on rukhas. So Habib Ahmad, he had a lot of latitude. He spoke out against rigidity in the Shafi'i madhab, and he often made alternative views available for people to practice. And if you read through his Tadhkirun Nas, you find several examples of that. Now, so ilm was his life. May Allah allow him to become our life. May Allah allow us to visit his grave one day in Huraydah. What's your brother's name again? Eh? Sorry? La'ik. You must ask him if he went to Huraydah already. And if he never went, you should encourage him to go. And all the other students that are there in Tarim, they should go visit Huraydah. Now, one of the things that he often engaged in was reconciling between tribes and people. Whenever there was conflict, he would serve as a medium to reconcile between people that are in the middle of conflict now. So we continue with his biography again, inshallah. There were some other things I wanted to relate of him, but we'll relate it in the next time one of our brothers reads from the Imams of the Valley, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. He was also the Qutb of his time. No. The Qutbiyya in his time was between Habib Abu Bakr al-Attas and Habib Ali al-Habshi, carried the Qutbiyya for some time, and Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas carried the Qutbiyya for some time. And connected to them, or immediately after them, was Habib Ja'far al-Aydarus. No. So Habib Abu Bakr was a Qutb, Habib Ali al-Habshi was a Qutb, Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas was a Qutb, Habib Ja'far al-Aydarus was a Qutb. After them, these scholars, the next great personality was Habib Abdul Qadir bin Ahmad al-Saqaf. No. whose great-grandson is with us now here in Cape Town. Inshallah, we continue then. Allah grant us tawfiq and understanding. May Allah make us love ilm. May Allah cause us to love the scholars of deen. Al-Imam Dhahabi said that when we speak of the Salihin, then Allah's rahmah descends. Tanzilu rahmatullahi inda dhikri salihin. He loved books, he loved reading, he loved spending time in libraries. How much time do we spend reading? How much time do we spend in libraries? If there's one thing that, if I look at our students, and there's one thing that, alhamdulillah, through the barakah of your teachers at the madrasa and the syllabus that we have going and the books that you are covering, and there's many things that causes one's heart to become happy. But if there's one thing that I observe, one gap that I observe among our students is that we don't see students spending a lot of time doing research, or a lot of times in the library, or a lot of time doing reading outside the syllabus. That's not something we observe. And the problem may be that you don't see, because we're not a madrasa that is sleep in, or that runs until the evening. Perhaps you don't see examples of scholars that actually do that. Wallahu a'lam. And our days that we spent in the Darul Uloom in Strand, it was a common sight to see students sitting whole day in the library. One student in a corner with 4 or 5 books open in front of him, doing research on a matter, spending 2 hours, 3 hours. No, that was remarkable. A lot of the students, they used to spend lots of hours in the library. And that's something we don't observe. Some of our students haven't even visited our library, don't even know what books we have in the library. And perhaps the difference was that many of us were inspired by Manata, who himself used to spend hours in the library. In fact, there were nights when he just fell asleep in his library. His house was down the road, but he would fall asleep in his library. Habib Ahmad was such a person that had an attachment to books. Allah grant us to be attached to books. A student of knowledge spends all his money on books. That's the most important thing to him. Not some sports gear, not some vehicle, not some car. Students of knowledge, whatever money they have, they spend on books. And they take pride in libraries that they build and libraries that they develop. Allah grant us tawfiq. When he received a copy of the Tafsir of Tabarani, the Tafsir of Imam al-Tabari, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Tafsir Tabari is one of the celebrated tafsirs. If you look at some recently printed versions of the Tafsir of Tabari, it runs into a good number of volumes. The old print was 11 volumes. The new prints could easily be 30 volumes plus, right? He was so happy when he received the Tafsir Tabari, he started a dars on the Tafsir Tabari. Now, Mawlana Afzal has a Monday Tafsir class, right? How many years is it going on? Like I see Habib Umar is now busy with the Habib Umar Tafsir Dars. Jalsatul Ithnain started many years ago, and he's reached now, I think he's in the 15th juz, Surah Isra, right? After many years. His love for knowledge was that he had students read the entire Tafsir Tabari with him, which is now probably 30 plus volumes, besides his classes, besides his duroos, besides his fiqh classes, his fatawa, just time allocated for the reading of Tafsir Tabari. Under 1 year they covered the whole book. Under 1 year they covered the whole tafsir of Tabari. Like remarkable. Allah grant us such love for ilm and such love for books. I never saw Munata become excited for anything like he became excited for books. At a madrasa in Strand, the day the books arrived at madrasa, everything stopped. Classes stopped. The whole day just became books. Unpacking, sorting out. Everyone is, and many of the students want readers. They want very studious. They want, Allah knows best. But it's just the joy of the teachers, Munata and then other teachers, and their love for books. It just, everyone was just happy because of that. And most of the library that we have in the madrasa, it was my private library that I donated to the madrasa. You know, that library we have inside over here, a lot of sacrifices went into purchasing those books. Like grocery bills couldn't be paid for the month. Holidays we couldn't go on holiday. But family had to make sacrifice for that library. Therefore, when I donated the library to the madrasa, my wife was upset. Because it's like, she thought maybe it's going to be an investment for the family. Because it's well worth a few 100,000. And donated it to the madrasa so that students can benefit and then students don't use the library. Or those who use it, they misuse it. And why am I saying this? It was a point I wanted to make. No. We have love for books and it becomes the most important thing to you. Ala kulli hal, Allah grant us that love and allow us to spend time with our books, reading and research and increasing in ilm and knowledge. May that become our bread and butter. May it become the air that we breathe. Love for the knowledge, because love for reading, love for knowledge, because it's one of the greatest forms of ibadah. And one of the greatest ways and means for us to draw close to Allah. One of the greatest forms and means for us to connect to Allah. That's one of the things that makes Allah the most happiest. Nothing can compare to it. Ameen Ya Rab. And thereafter, so that we can become instruments of change within this world, within our communities, within our masajid, within our schools, so we can become instruments of change in this world. There's a lack of ilm in this world. May Allah allow us to fill that gap. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. بهذه النوايا بما نواسل وصالح وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة. بسم الله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله. We are well over time, right? Now you can take